Most of us have finished the game, watched the credits roll, and then just sat there for a few minutes thinking about everything that happened. Not because of the gameplay, not because of the graphics, but because of the story. The best video games stories stay with us long after we put the controller down. They introduce us to unforgettable characters, take us to incredible worlds, and make us feel emotions that few other forms of entertainment can replicate. Over the years, gaming has evolved into one of the most powerful storytelling mediums in the world. Some games make us question our choices, some break our hearts, some leaves us thinking about their endings for weeks, months, or even years. And while every player has their own favorites, there are certain games that have earned a reputation for delivering truly unforgettable narratives. Hello and welcome to Nerdy Boys. Today we're counting down 10 games with a story so incredible that they help define what a storytelling in gaming can be. Let's get started. Starting things off at number 10, we have Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. When people talk about storytelling in games, they often focus on giant worlds, massive casts of characters, and stories that span dozens of hours. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice takes a completely different approach. Instead of telling an epic story about saving the world, it tells an insanely personal story about one woman's struggle against grief, trauma, and her own mind. You play as Senua, a Celtic warrior who journeys into a terrifying interpretation of the Norse underworld in an attempt to save the soul of someone she loved. What follows is one of the most unique narrative experiences gaming has ever produced. The brilliance of Hellblade comes from how it places the player directly into Senua's perspective. The voices constantly surrounding her, the haunting environment, and the unsettling atmosphere all work together to make you experience the world as she does. It's not just a story you're watching unfold, it's a story you're living through. What makes Hellblade so memorable is its empathy. It treats its subject matter with care and respect while delivering a journey that feels emotional, intimate, and deeply human. It's proof that a game doesn't need a giant open world or a 100-hour runtime to tell a story that stays with players for years. At number 9, we have BioShock. Some games tell great stories. BioShock creates one of the most unforgettable settings in gaming history and then uses that world to tell a story that players still discuss nearly 20 years later. The game begins with a plane crash in the middle of the ocean before introducing players to Rapture, an underwater city built as a utopian experiment. At first, the city feels fascinating, then it becomes unsettling, and before long, it transforms into one of the most haunting places ever created in a video game. What makes BioShock special is the way its story is woven into the world itself. Every hallway, every audio log, and every room tells part of the city's history. As players uncovered what happened to Rapture, they slowly realized that the city wasn't destroyed by a single disaster, collapsed because of the flaws and ambitions of the people who built it. The game explores themes of free will, power, ideology, and human nature in a way that feels surprisingly mature even today. And while BioShock is famous for one of the most iconic twists in gaming history, reducing it to that moment would be doing it a disservice. The real achievement of BioShock is that it uses its world, characters, and story to ask questions that stay with players long after the game is over. At number 8, we have Detroit Become Human. Detroit Become Human is one of the clearest examples of games that could only exist in an interactive medium. Set in a future when androids have become a normal part of society, the game explores what happens when these machines begin to develop emotion, self-awareness, and a desire for freedom. It's a concept we've seen in movies and television before, but Detroit gives players something those mediums can't: responsibility for the choices being made. The story follows multiple protagonists, each offering a different perspective on the growing conflict between humans and androids. As their journeys unfold, players are constantly faced with difficult decisions that can dramatically alter the direction of the narrative. What makes Detroit so compelling isn't just the branching paths, it's the way those choices force players to think about morality, empathy, prejudice, and identity. The game regularly asks difficult questions without providing easy answers. By the end, many players spend almost as much time reflecting on the decision they made as they do thinking about the story itself. Few games have embarrassed players' choices as blatantly as Detroit, and that's what makes it one of the most fascinating narrative experiences ever created. At number 7, we have Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima may be one of the most beautiful games ever made, but its story is much more than a showcase for stunning landscapes and cinematic sword fights. Set during the Mongol invasion of Japan, the game follows Jin Sakai, a samurai who survived the destruction of his homeland and must decide how far he's willing to go to save it. That simple premise becomes the foundation for one of the strongest character-driven stories in modern gaming. At the heart of Ghost of Tsushima is a conflict between tradition and necessity. Jin has been raised to follow the samurai code, but the enemies he faces don't play by those rules. As the war continues, he gradually begins to adapt new methods that challenge everything he was taught to believe. What makes the story resonant is that these choices come with real emotional consequences. Jin's journey isn't simply about defeating an invading army. It's about deciding who he wants to become and what sacrifices he's willing to make along the way. Combined with memorable supporting characters, emotional side stories, and one of the most immersive worlds in gaming, Ghost of Tsushima delivers a narrative that feels both epic in its scale and deeply personal at the same time. At number 6, we have Mass Effect 2. Many games have great protagonists. Mass Effect 2 has one of the greatest casts in gaming history. At its core, the story follows Commander Shepard as he assembles a team for what is essentially a suicide mission. It's a simple setup, but what makes Mass Effect 2 extraordinary is the amount of time it spent developing the people who will accompany you on that journey. Every squad mate feels like a fully realized character with their own fears, goals, regrets, and personal struggles. Through loyalty missions and conversations, players gradually learn who these people are and why they fight. By the time the final mission arrives, they no longer feel like party members, they feel like actual friends. What makes the story so effective is that it invests heavily in relationships. The game understands that players care more about people than plot twists. As a result, nearly every major moment carries emotional weight because you've spent so much time getting to know the characters involved. The final act remains as one of the most celebrated endings in RPG history because it puts everything you've learned, every choices you've made, and every relationship you've built to the test. Mass Effect 2 isn't just a great science fiction story, it's a masterclass in character-driven storytelling and one of the finest examples of player investment ever seen in gaming. Next up at number 5 we have Final Fantasy VII. When people talk about games that change storytelling forever, Final Fantasy VII is almost always part of the conversation. Released in 1997, it introduced an entire generation of players to the idea that video games could deliver emotional, cinematic stories on a scale that many players simply hadn't experienced before. But what makes Final Fantasy VII so remarkable isn't just its historical importance, it's the fact that its story continues to resonate nearly 3 decades later. At the center of the adventure is Clair Strife, a mercenary whose journey becomes far more complicated than initially appears. As the story unfolds, themes of identity, memory, loss, and self-discovery gradually emerge, turning what begins as a fight against a powerful corporation into something far more personal and emotional. The game's cast plays a huge role in its success. Characters like Tifa, Aerith, Barrett, and Sephiroth have become legends because they feel larger than life while still remaining deeply human. Their relationships, struggles, and sacrifices give the story an emotional weight that stays with players long after the credits roll. Perhaps most importantly, Final Fantasy VII helped prove that video games could tell stories capable of making players laugh, cry, and think. It wasn't simply a great RPG, it was one of the first games to show the world what storytelling in gaming could truly become. Now at number 4 we have a very special game. Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Every once in a while, a game arrives seemingly out of nowhere and immediately earns a place among the industry's best. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is one of those rare games. Its premise is instantly fascinating. Each year, a mysterious figure known as the Paintress writes a number and everyone of that age disappears forever. As the number continues to fall, humanity faces a future that grows darker and more hopeless with every year passing. What makes Clair Obscur special isn't just the mystery surrounding its world, it's the emotional journey of the people trying to confront the impossible. The members of Expedition 33 know exactly what is at stake, and that understanding creates a sense of urgency and vulnerability that few games manage to capture. Throughout the story, themes of mortality, grief, hope, and human perseverance are explored with remarkable maturity. The game constantly asks difficult questions about how people respond when confronted with their own limited time and whether hope still has value in the face of seemingly inevitable tragedy. What impressed many players most was how confident the storytelling felt. This wasn't a studio relying on decades of established history. This was a brand new universe introducing brand new characters and somehow making players care deeply about them almost immediately. For a completely new IP to earn comparisons to some of the game's greatest narrative is an incredible achievement, and that's why Clair Obscur deserves its place among the very best story-driven games ever made. Issue 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 doesn't just tell a great story, it creates an entire world filled with great stories. At its core, the game follows Geralt of Rivia as he searches for Ciri, a young woman he considers family, but that central narrative is only one thread in a much larger tapestry. Throughout your journey, you'll encounter kings, peasants, monsters, sorceresses, criminals, and ordinary people whose lives often become just as compelling as the main quest itself. One of the game's greatest strength is its writing. Many RPGs treat side quests as distractions. The Witcher 3 treats them as opportunities to tell meaningful stories. A seemingly simple monster contract can evolve into a heartbreaking tragedy. A small village dispute can reveal layers of political intrigue and human suffering. Even the shortest quests often leave a lasting impression. What truly elevates the game is its moral complexity. Geralt rarely faces choices with obvious right or wrong answers. Instead, players are constantly forced to navigate situations where every option comes with consequences. Sometimes doing the right thing still leads to pain. Sometimes the least terrible choice is the best outcome available. Combined with unforgettable characters like Yennefer, Triss, Ciri, Dandelion, and Vesemir, the result is a fantasy world that feels authentic, lived in, and emotionally rich. Years later, The Witcher 3 remains one of the finest examples of world building and storytelling ever seen in gaming history. I think we all know that what top 2 games would be. And genuinely speaking, I really don't think that either of them is number 1 or number 2. It's just a matter of taste and personal experience. In this list, we have Red Dead Redemption 2 as number 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the rare games that feel less like a traditional video game and more like a great novel brought to life. The story follows Arthur Morgan, an outlaw living through the final days of the Wild West. At first glance, Arthur appears to be exactly what you expect, a loyal member of the Van Link gang, who follows orders and does whatever is necessary to survive. But as the story unfolds, players witness one of the most remarkable character journeys gaming has ever produced. Arthur's evolution is what makes Red Dead Redemption 2 so powerful. Over dozens of hours, players come to understand his values, regrets, relationships, and dreams. They see him struggle with loyalty, morality, realization that the world around him is changing in ways he can no longer stop. What makes this story extraordinary is its patience. Rockstar allows moments to breathe. Conversations around campfires, quiet rides through the wilderness, and simple interactions between characters all continue to making the world feel alive. By the time the story reaches its conclusion, the emotional investment is immense. Players aren't simply watching Arthur's story unfold. They feel as though they've lived alongside him. It's a story about loyalty, redemption, change, and the search for meaning. And few games have ever delivered those themes with such power and created a masterpiece like Red Dead Redemption 2. And taking number 1 spot is The Last of Us, a game that fundamentally changed how many people view storytelling in video games. On the surface, the premise is familiar. A devastating outbreak has destroyed civilization and survival has become a daily struggle. But what makes The Last of Us special is that it was never really about the apocalypse. Instead, it's about people. It's about grief, loss, love, responsibility, and relationship that help us endure even in the darkest circumstances. The story follows Joel, a man emotionally broken by tragedy, and Ellie, a young girl who has grown up in a world defined by violence and hardship. The journey across America begins as a simple mission, but gradually evolves into one of the most believable and emotionally compelling relationships ever portrayed in gaming. What makes their connection so effective is how natural it feels. Through conversations, shared experiences, disagreements, jokes, and moments of vulnerability, Joel and Ellie slowly become more than companions. They become family. The game's writing is remarkably restrained. It trusts the audience. Instead of relying on constant exposition, it allows characters and situations to speak for themselves. Every major moment feels earned because of the foundation built throughout the journey. Years after release, players still debate its themes, discussing its ending, and revisit its characters. That's a mark of truly exceptional storytelling. The Last of Us isn't just one of gaming's greatest stories. It's one of the clearest examples that video games can stand alongside film, television, and literature as a powerful storytelling medium. And there you have it. Whether it's the deeply personal journey of Senua, the philosophical questions of BioShock, the emotional choice of Detroit, or the unforgettable adventures of Geralt, Arthur, Joel, and Ellie, every game on this list demonstrates just how powerful the storytelling in gaming can be. What makes these stories special isn't simply that they are well written, it's that they make us feel something. They make us care about their worlds, invest in their characters, and remember their journeys long after the credits have rolled. And that's ultimately what great stories matter. Years later, we may forget specific mechanics or side activities, but remember the characters who inspired us, the moments that shocked us, and the endings that stayed with us long after we finished playing. Of course, storytelling is one of the most subjective things in gaming, and there are plenty of incredible games that didn't make this list. So let us know in the comments which video game story has stayed with you the longest, and which games do you think deserve the number 1 spot. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel and allows us to keep making more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next adventure.